Right, let's jump straight into this explainer. Today we're exploring something absolutely mind-bending, a profoundly transformative state of consciousness called a separation collapse event. To really wrap our heads around what this actually is, we're going to follow a wild story from our source material about a student named Fletcher and his rather unconventional teacher, a dragon named Zoran. Through their conversations, we're going to unpack the exact moment the boundary between self and world just completely dissolves. And we're not just talking mystical poetry here, we are getting into the actual mechanics of how human perception works.
To set the scene for you, picture this firelit cave. But it doesn't feel like a normal physical room. It feels more like a single, continuous organism, a totally unified field. It's in this space that Fletcher, after pushing through a bunch of mental thresholds, hits this massive realization. He tells Zoran, there was no me looking. There was just everything, one thing, no boundary. He suddenly gets it. The dividing line between himself and the rest of the universe, it's not actually real. It's completely imaginary.
Part 1. The Illusion of Separation.
So Zoran drops a bit of a bombshell on Fletcher here. He explains that this experience wasn't some magical, mystical event. Actually, it was just reality. It's what the world looks like before the human nervous system gets its hands on it and chops it all up. You see, our sense of being the separate self isn't built into consciousness itself. It's actually a highly complex neural construction. Your brain literally builds this feeling of separation. Think of your default mode network, your parietal lobes, predictive processing, proprioceptive mapping, and autobiographical memory as this coordinated construction crew. They are constantly teaming up to generate this persistent illusion of me in here and the world out there, totally convincing you that you're fundamentally separate from the space around you.
This comparison really hits the nail on the head. Normally, those active brain networks are working overtime to create that familiar me in here and world out there feeling. But during a true separation collapse event, it's like someone pulls the plug. The default mode network stays offline. The parietal boundary map completely dissolves. The predictive processing system just quiets right down. The brain systems that are entirely responsible for drawing those artificial lines, they just pause. The boundary generator shuts down.
Part 2. Anatomy of a Collapse.
Okay, so what actually happens during this collapse? Well, your proprioceptive ownership, that deeply held feeling that your body uniquely belongs to you and firmly ends at your skin, it softens. The whole concept of inside versus outside basically collapses into one unified space. And here is the absolutely crucial part. Awareness remains crystal clear. Zoran is super firm with Fletcher about this. This is not dissociation. You aren't hallucinating or seeing things that aren't there. It's actually the exact opposite. It's pure, unfiltered perception without your brain's boundary generator running interference. You're not magically merging with the world. You are simply, finally, seeing it without the imaginary walls.
Part 3. Signs of Unity Perception.
So, how do you know if you're actually experiencing this? Zoran conjures up these 3 glowing symbols in the cave to break it down. First up is boundary dissolution. This kicks in when that parietal boundary map quiets down, and your nervous system quite literally stops drawing lines. The result is this profound sense of spaciousness. The whole feeling of distance just vanishes. You end up feeling this intense intimacy with everything around you, because, as Fletcher realizes, it feels like you and the room are the exact same thing. And as Zoran loves to point out, you always are. The boundary was a trick all along.
Then we have the second sign, unified presence. Look, normally we walk around feeling like we're a little pilot sitting right behind our eyes, looking out at the world, right? But when the self-generator pauses, awareness stops feeling located in your head. Instead, it feels centerless, continuous, completely effortless. It's like awareness is the entire room. The takeaway Zoran gives here is just staggering. Awareness isn't inside you. You are inside awareness.
And the third sign, blissful neutrality. Now, this isn't joy, and it's definitely not excitement. It's a calm, so incredibly deep that it feels like fundamental truth. Zoran explains that this bliss is structural, not emotional. It happens automatically simply because your threat system, your default mode network, and your emotional tagging system have all gone offline. It leaves you with pure peace and completeness. Fletcher says it feels like nothing is missing, because, well, in reality, nothing ever was.
This leads to a massive light bulb moment in their conversation. Fletcher realizes this unified state is completely devoid of anxiety. It's just incredibly peaceful. And Zoran hits him with this profound truth. When the illusion of separation collapses, fear literally has nowhere left to stand. Think about it. Fear relies entirely on the concept of a fragile self that needs protecting from a dangerous other. If you take away that boundary, structurally, fear just cannot exist.
Part 4. The Unity Window.
Theory is great, but experiencing it is the whole point, right? So Zoran actually gives Fletcher 3 practical techniques to induce this collapse. Practice 1 is the boundary softening technique. This is where you feel the edges of your body, then the space around it, and you intentionally let that distinction blur. Practice 2 is the centerlessness cue, silently reminding yourself that awareness is not located, which actively hacks and weakens that parietal boundary map. And practice 3 is the field merge, expanding your awareness until your body, your breath, sounds, and the space around you all feel like one single continuous field.
Now wait, before handing over the final ritual, Zoran issues a very serious warning. He tells Fletcher that this phase, as beautiful as it is, can be incredibly destabilizing. Why? Because the ego cannot survive unity. It only exists in separation. So the ego is going to panic when separation collapses. It will rush back in, desperately trying to reassert boundaries and rebuild the illusion because its literal survival depends on you believing you are separate.
But here's the beautiful part. Even though the ego is going to fight back and try to rebuild those walls, a permanent shift has already happened. Zoran promises that once you experience this truth, even just once, it shatters your absolute belief in the illusion forever. Sure, you'll probably get caught up in daily life again, but deep down, you will always know the boundary is just a neural trick.
So, to actually put all of this into practice, here is the exact 10-minute Unity window ritual Zoran teaches. It's perfectly designed to weaken your parietal boundary map and give you that first real taste of Unity perception. You're going to spend 2 minutes doing a whole system breath, then ease into 3 minutes of deliberately softening your boundaries, followed by 3 minutes of merging with the field around you, and finally, wrap up with 2 minutes using that centerlessness cue. It is a highly structured, laser-focused way to quiet your brain's boundary generator.
Just as Fletcher opens his eyes, he has this perfect integration. He realizes he didn't become the world, he just stopped being separate from it. Zoran confirms his success, but then he teases that there's an even deeper phase waiting for them. Because once the illusion of space and separation completely collapses, the next step is the collapse of the final illusion, the sense of time itself.
But before we can even think about collapsing time, we've got to master the collapse of space. So, to complete this 10-minute Unity window ritual, Zoran leaves Fletcher, and by extension, all of us, with one final provocative prompt to reflect on. After the boundary generator quiets down, after the illusion of separation completely fades, what truly remains? I highly encourage you to test this ritual out for yourself, observe what happens, and discover your own answer. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.